The Disowned Heiress Part 1. They framed me as a villain. So I smiled and accepted the role. When I turned 13, I thought my life was already planned. I was the daughter of Adrian Sinclair, CEO of Sinclair Group, and the granddaughter of William Sinclair, the chairman who had built one of the largest companies in the country. One day, I was supposed to inherit it all. At least, that was what everyone told me. Unfortunately, nobody told me that while I was learning how to run a business, someone else was learning how to take it from me. My mother died when I was 11. Even now, years later, I still remembered the silence of that day. People always talk about grief as if it's loud. For me, it wasn't. It was quiet. The empty chair at breakfast. The missing voice when I came home. The room nobody entered anymore. My father buried himself in work. I buried myself in studying. Neither of us knew how to handle loss, so we avoided it. A year later, my father remarried. Her name was Victoria Hart. She was elegant, polite, beautiful, the kind of woman who always seemed to know exactly what to say. She also had a daughter, Emily Hart, the same age as me. The first time we met, Emily smiled brightly. "I hope we can be sisters." I remember smiling back. "I hope so too." And at the time, I genuinely meant it. Looking back, I wonder if they started planning from the beginning. Or if greed simply grew over time. Either way, I never noticed. People later asked how I could be so blind. The answer was simple: I didn't have time. My schedule at 13 looked ridiculous. Wake up at 6. Exercise, school. Business lessons, finance lessons, economics, public speaking, negotiation training, corporate law, market analysis. Dinner, more studying, sleep, repeat. Every day, every week, every month. My father personally approved most of it. My grandfather approved the rest. They weren't cruel. They genuinely believed they were preparing me to lead Sinclair Group someday, and to be fair, they were right. The training worked. I graduated near the top of every class. I learned quickly. Worked hard and never complained, at least not out loud. Meanwhile, Emily lived a very different life. She attended the same schools, received similar opportunities, and ignored most of them. Studying bored her, business bored her. Responsibility bored her, shopping didn't, parties didn't, spending money definitely didn't. Victoria never seemed concerned. "She's still young." That was her answer to everything. Emily failed a test. "She's still young." Emily skipped lessons. "She's still young." Emily wasted money. "She's still young." Apparently youth was a magical excuse. At first I thought Emily simply wanted attention. Then strange things started happening. One of my closest friends suddenly stopped talking to me. No argument, no fight, nothing. She simply drifted away. I assumed she had become busy because I certainly was, so I moved on. Then another friend disappeared, and another. And another. Did I investigate? No, I barely had enough time to sleep. Tracking down friendship drama ranked somewhere below organizing my desk. Years later, I would learn Emily had been working hard, very hard, not on grades. Not on business, on relationships. While I was learning how to negotiate contracts, she was learning how to manipulate people. Rumors started appearing. Small ones, harmless ones, at least at first. Sophia Sinclair thinks she's better than everyone. Sophia is arrogant. Sophia only cares about money. Sophia looks down on people. Did I hear them? Sometimes. Did I care? Not really. The funny thing about rumors is that they only hurt when you value the opinions behind them. I didn't. My goals were simple. Graduate, join Sinclair Group, eventually take over. Everything else felt secondary. Unfortunately, my lack of concern created a problem. Because when lies go unchallenged, people start believing them. By the time I entered high school, many students already had opinions about me. Most had never actually spoken to me. One afternoon, I overheard two girls talking. "She's kind of scary." "Why, I don't know." That was the entire explanation. I almost laughed. People were creating stories about me despite barely knowing me. College wasn't much different. I attended one of the most prestigious business schools in the country. Most students wanted one thing: success. That made life easier. Unlike school friendships, business relationships were honest. People didn't pretend. They wanted opportunities, connections, partnerships, investments. I respected that. At least everyone knew the rules. One person in particular became impossible to ignore: Nathan Blackwell. Nathan was my biggest rival, the heir to Blackwell Industries, the largest company in the country. For years we competed in everything: grades, presentations, Business simulations, leadership projects, anything. Usually I finished first. Nathan finished second. He hated that. "One day I'm beating you." He said it so often that it practically became a greeting. His twin sister, Olivia, found the whole thing hilarious. "You know," she once told him, "you'd probably be happier if you stopped treating Sophia like the final boss of a video game." Nathan nearly choked on his coffee. I laughed for 5 minutes. Unlike her brother, Olivia never cared much about competition. She was intelligent, very intelligent. She simply had better things to do. The three of us ended up spending a surprising amount of time together. Well, as much time as people like us could spare. Meanwhile, back home, the trap continued closing and I never noticed. Every year, Emily's reputation improved. Mine worsened. She was described as kind, friendly, approachable, sweet. I was described as cold, distant, arrogant, ambitious. The strange thing, neither image was completely false. Emily was friendly, I was distant. The difference was that my distance wasn't arrogance, it was exhaustion. By 22, I was managing projects inside Sinclair Group while finishing university. Most people my age struggled balancing classes and internships. I was balancing classes and multi-million-dollar business negotiations. The workload was enormous, but I loved it. For the first time, I felt close to achieving my goals. Graduation arrived shortly afterward. The ceremony felt surprisingly emotional, years of effort finally ending. Years of work finally rewarded. My father attended, my grandfather attended, even Victoria and Emily attended. For one day everything seemed perfect. I should have known better. That evening we gathered for dinner. A private family celebration, or so I thought. Halfway through the meal, Victoria suddenly spoke. "There's something we need to discuss." The atmosphere changed immediately. My grandfather frowned, my father looked confused. Victoria placed a folder on the table, then another, and another. I remember staring at them, trying to understand. "What is this?" I asked. Victoria looked disappointed, the kind of disappointment actors use in movies. "Sophia," she sighed. "I never wanted it to come to this." A cold feeling settled in my stomach. For the first time in years, something felt wrong, very wrong. Then she opened the folder, and my world began to collapse. To be continued. The Disowned Heiress Part 2. The moment Victoria opened the first folder, I knew something was wrong, very wrong. She slowly pushed it across the dining table until it stopped in front of my father. "I wanted to believe there was another explanation," she said softly, "but I don't think I can keep hiding this anymore." Her voice trembled just enough to sound genuine. If I hadn't trusted her completely, I might have questioned it. Unfortunately, I did trust her. My father looked at the documents. His relaxed expression slowly disappeared, his brows furrowed. "What is this?" Victoria lowered her head. "I found these by accident while cleaning Sophia's study." My grandfather immediately looked toward me. I frowned. "My study?" She nodded sadly. "I didn't want to invade your privacy, Sophia, but these papers were lying on your desk. They contained confidential company information." I couldn't ignore it. I stared at her. "My desk? I never left confidential documents lying around. Never. That had been one of the first lessons my grandfather taught me. Yet, there they were, printed, organized, highlighted. Almost as if someone wanted people to find them. My father continued reading. His face became darker with every page. "What exactly am I looking at?" Victoria took a deep breath. "Company reports, internal financial information, future project plans, and," she hesitated, "records showing those files were sent to an outside email." The dining room became silent. My heart skipped a beat. "I never sent anything?" No one answered. Instead, my grandfather picked up another folder. Inside were screenshots, email records, financial statements, copies of confidential files, even timestamps. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. "I've never seen these before." I spoke calmly, not because I wasn't nervous, because panicking wouldn't solve anything. My father finally looked at me. "Sophia, did you leak company information?" "No." His eyes didn't leave mine. "Think carefully before answering." "I already have. I didn't leak anything." Victoria sighed. "I knew you would deny it." I turned toward her. "Because I didn't do it." "I wish that were true." Her eyes slowly filled with tears. "I really do." Emily suddenly stood up. "Mom, You don't have to say any more. She looked at me with red eyes. Sophia, if you made a mistake, just admit it. I'll forgive you. I couldn't help staring at her. She sounded sincere, completely sincere. If I hadn't known myself, I might have believed her. I didn't do it. That was all I said because it was the truth. My grandfather placed another document on the table. This signature, is it yours? I looked. It was, or it looked like mine almost perfectly. It isn't. It looks identical because someone copied it. My grandfather slowly shook his head. Sophia, enough. Those words hurt more than I expected because my grandfather had always trusted me, always, until today. My father closed the final folder. His voice became unusually cold. I've defended you your entire life. I never doubted your abilities. I trusted you with company projects while you were still in university. And this, he tapped the folder, is how you repay that trust. I wanted to laugh. Not because anything was funny, because the situation felt unreal. I had spent years working until midnight, years sacrificing everything, years preparing to inherit Sinclair Group. Why would I destroy the very company I had worked so hard to protect? It made no sense. I didn't do it. I repeated, for the third time. Victoria quietly wiped away a tear. I hoped you would tell the truth, but she lowered her eyes. I understand. My father stood. So do I. He looked toward the butler. Ask legal to prepare the necessary documents. The old butler hesitated. Sir, now, yes, sir. I suddenly understood. They weren't discussing punishment. They had already decided. Emily covered her mouth. Dad, isn't this too much? Victoria gently held her arm. Emily, don't interfere. Emily lowered her head obediently. Another perfect performance. My grandfather finally spoke. Sophia, you've disappointed me. That sentence hurt far more than I expected. Not because I respected his position, because I respected the man. He had taught me everything. Negotiation, discipline, responsibility, integrity. Now, he believed I had none of them. I'll ask one final time. He looked directly into my eyes. Did you betray this family? No. Silence. My father took a deep breath. Then I have nothing else to say. I slowly stood. So, that's it? No one answered. I smiled. A small smile, not because I was happy, because I finally understood something. Truth wasn't enough. Not when someone had prepared lies this carefully. The lawyer arrived 20 minutes later. He looked uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. He placed several documents onto the table. No one spoke. The only sound was paper turning. Finally, my grandfather looked at me. If you refuse to sign, we'll proceed legally. I looked at the papers, disowned. Inheritance revoked, removal from Sinclair Group, termination of all authority, everything. I picked up the pen without hesitation and signed. Everyone froze, even Victoria. You, my father frowned. You aren't going to argue? I placed the pen down. What would be the point? You've already decided. No explanation will change that. I turned toward Victoria. You've done an impressive job, for just a second. The corners of her lips moved. Only slightly. No one else noticed. I did. That single expression confirmed everything. This had never been about evidence. It had been planned. I walked toward the door. No one stopped me just before leaving. I turned around. This is the last time you'll ever see me as family. I won't come back. I won't beg. And I won't ask for forgiveness. Because I've done nothing wrong. Then I left. Outside, the night air felt colder than usual. I stood beside my car for several minutes, trying to process everything. My phone vibrated. Bank notification. Account access suspended. Card frozen. Second notification. Corporate access revoked. Third notification. Company vehicle authorization canceled. I looked at the screen, then laughed quietly. They really had prepared everything. I drove to the nearest luxury hotel, walked inside, requested a room. The receptionist smiled politely. Your card, please. I handed it over. She inserted it into the machine. A few seconds later, I'm sorry. The transaction was declined. Would you like to try another card? I already knew the answer. Still, I tried 2 more. Both failed. As I walked back outside, I finally realized something. They expected me to panic, to cry, to return home, to beg. Unfortunately, they had misunderstood me completely. Most people believed elite schools existed only to teach business. They were wrong. The real value was the people, connections, not friendships, connections. Friends help because they care. Connections help because it benefits them. And in business, that relationship lasts much longer. I opened my contacts, scrolled for several seconds, then pressed one name, Daniel Brooks, former classmate, now owner of a successful software company. The phone rang twice, 3 times, then connected. Sophia, I need your apartment. He didn't ask why, didn't ask questions, just replied, the guard has a spare key. Tell him I sent you. I'll text you the address. I also need a laptop. I'll bring one. The call ended. 42 seconds, that was all. Business relationships. Simple, efficient, reliable. An hour later, I unlocked the apartment door. It wasn't huge, but it was quiet. Exactly what I needed. 30 minutes later, Daniel arrived carrying a laptop, a bag of food, and several bottles of water. He placed everything on the table. I figured you forgot to eat. He wasn't wrong. I hadn't eaten since dinner, though dinner hardly counted. You don't need to explain. He picked up his coat. When you're ready to talk, call me. Then he left. I opened the laptop, logged into my investment accounts. One by one, for the first time that day, I smiled genuinely. To be continued. The Disowned Heiress Part 3. The article remained open on my laptop. Every word felt like poison, not because it attacked me. That part didn't matter. I had spent years being misunderstood. What truly made my blood boil was seeing my mother's name dragged through the mud. A woman who had been dead for over 10 years. A woman who had devoted her entire life to this family. I slowly closed the laptop. There was only one place I needed to go. The Sinclair mansion. Half an hour later, my car stopped outside the familiar gates. The guards immediately recognized me. One of them looked nervous. Miss Sophia, I didn't even look at him. Open the gate. He hesitated. Mrs. Sinclair instructed us. I raised my eyes. The cold look on my face made him swallow the rest of his sentence. Within seconds, the gate opened. I drove inside. As soon as I entered the mansion, every servant froze. Some lowered their heads, others quietly walked away. No one dared stop me. I walked straight toward the living room, exactly as I expected. Everyone was there, my father, my grandfather, Victoria, Emily. Almost like they had been waiting for me. Without saying a word, I threw my phone onto the table. The article was still displayed on the screen. Explain. Victoria only glanced at it before pretending to be surprised. Sophia, I don't know what you're talking about. I ignored her. Instead, I looked directly at my father. This article contains private information. Information only our family knows. My mother's medical history, our family events, even old photographs. Someone from this house leaked them. Who? My father looked at the phone. Then at me. Finally, he sighed. Sophia, you've already embarrassed this family enough. Don't make another scene. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I asked who leaked the information. No answer. Victoria slowly stood. You've misunderstood? We're the victims too. I've already contacted the newspaper. They refused to remove it. Her acting deserved an award. If I hadn't already investigated, I might have believed her. I smiled, a cold smile. Really? I took out another phone. Ryan had already sent me everything. Bank transfers, payment receipts, IP addresses, anonymous accounts, everything. I threw the printed documents onto the table. They traced the payment. The money came from your personal account. Victoria's face changed, only for a second, then she recovered. This is fake. You forged it. I laughed. I've only had these documents for 20 minutes. I must be incredibly efficient. Emily suddenly stood. Sophia, stop accusing my mother. I slowly turned toward her. You should be careful. Some of those anonymous accounts belong to you. Her face turned pale. Before anyone could speak again, Victoria suddenly walked toward me. You've gone too far. She raised her hand, trying to slap me. Instinctively, I caught her wrist, then gently pushed her away. I barely used any strength, yet she exaggerated the movement. She deliberately stumbled backward. Her shoulder struck the edge of the coffee table. She fell onto the floor. Immediately, tears appeared. Ah, my arm. Emily rushed over. Mom, Dad, Grandpa, look what she did. My father stood up so quickly that his chair nearly fell over. Sophia, his voice echoed through the room. Have you lost your mind? I looked at Victoria, then at Emily. Perfect. Their coordination was perfect. They had even prepared this. Before I could explain, my grandfather slammed his cane against the floor. The loud sound silenced the room. If you dare attack your family again, I'll officially remove your name from every Sinclair record. I'll make sure you never inherit a single cent. Something inside me finally snapped. I laughed. Not loudly, just enough to surprise everyone. You'll remove my name? I looked directly into his eyes. You already did. You disowned me yesterday. You froze my accounts. You threw me out. What exactly is left to take? Neither he nor my father answered. I pointed toward Victoria. She framed me. I pointed toward the phone. She insulted my mother. Then I looked at my father. And you believed everything without investigating. He frowned. There was evidence. There was fake evidence. There wasn't even an investigation. You taught me that every business decision requires verification. So why was I judged in one night for the first time? My father avoided my eyes, then he quietly said, if you apologize to Victoria, we can discuss everything calmly. I stared at him. Apologize? She tried to slap me. I defended myself. She fell. And somehow, I'm the criminal. Victoria began crying even harder. Adrian, I told you, she hates me. I've tried so hard. Emily hugged her mother. It's okay. I'll protect you. I almost admired their performance. Almost. Then my father said something I never expected. Sophia, Victoria is your mother now. The room became completely silent. I looked at him for several seconds, then I smiled. A genuine smile, not because I was happy, because at that moment, every remaining feeling I had toward this family disappeared. My mother died 10 years ago. No one, I repeat, no one, will ever replace her. I turned toward my grandfather. You once told me that the Sinclair family always protects its own. I believed you. I spent 12 years working for this family. I gave up friends. I gave up hobbies. I gave up my childhood. I thought all of it would help Sinclair Group become stronger. I looked around the mansion. And today, I finally understand. I was never family. I was only useful. I picked up my phone, walked toward the entrance. Just before leaving, my grandfather spoke one last time. If you leave this house today, don't ever think about returning. Without turning around, I answered. I wasn't planning to. Outside, I sat inside my car without starting the engine for nearly 5 minutes. Then my phone rang. Ryan, I answered immediately. I've finished. What did you find? He sighed. Sophia, the article was paid for by Victoria. I already guessed, but that's not all. My expression became serious. What else? They've contacted almost every major company. They're warning them not to hire you. They're saying you stole confidential information. They're threatening legal action against anyone who works with you. I slowly looked back at the mansion. So, they don't just want me gone. They want to make sure I never recover. Exactly. Ryan remained silent for a moment, then added, there's one more thing. They're planning another article. This time, they're accusing your late mother of manipulating your father into marriage. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. That woman, she had already taken my home, my family, my reputation. Now she wanted to erase my mother's dignity as well. Ryan spoke again. What are you going to do? I slowly smiled. A smile colder than any I'd ever worn before. They made one mistake. What? They think I'll waste my time proving I'm innocent. I won't. I'm going to become so successful that one day they'll wish they'd never forced me to leave. I ended the call. Opened my contacts, scrolled past dozens of names, then stopped at one. Nathan Blackwell, my biggest rival, the only person who had competed with me for first place since childhood. I pressed the call button. 1 ring, 2 rings. 3 rings, he answered. Well, his familiar voice carried a hint of amusement. To what do I owe the pleasure, Sophia? I need a meeting, he chuckled. I've been waiting years to hear those words. When? Now, there was a brief silence. Then he replied, my office. 1 hour. I'll be there. As the call ended, I looked at the Sinclair mansion one last time, then started my car. If they wanted to erase Sophia Sinclair, fine, they could keep the name. From today onward, they would have to face the woman they created. Exactly 1 hour later, my car stopped in front of the tallest office building in the city, Blackwell Industries. For years, it had been Sinclair Group's biggest competitor. And for just as many years, Nathan Blackwell had been my biggest rival. The receptionist immediately stood when she saw me. "Good afternoon, Miss Sinclair. I have an appointment with Mr. Blackwell." "Of course. He's expecting you." She personally escorted me to the private elevator. Nothing had changed. Nathan liked efficiency. Anyone he invited upstairs was never kept waiting. The elevator doors opened onto the executive floor. Before I could take another step, someone rushed toward me. "Sophia," I barely had time to react before Olivia Blackwell wrapped me in a hug. "It's been forever." I couldn't help smiling. "It hasn't even been a week." "A week is forever." Her cheerful personality hadn't changed since childhood. Nathan, standing outside his office with a cup of coffee, sighed dramatically. "Can you two finish the reunion? Some of us actually have a company to run." Olivia rolled her eyes. "You're just jealous?" "I absolutely am." Nathan looked at me. "Come in." His office overlooked almost the entire city. The view was impressive, not that I cared. Nathan noticed exactly where my eyes landed, not on the view. Not on the expensive furniture, but on the reports scattered across his desk. He smirked. "I knew you'd look at the paperwork first. I've known you too long." "So," he sat down. "What brings the future CEO of Sinclair Group to my office?" I calmly corrected him. "Former future CEO." Nathan's smile disappeared for a moment. He simply studied my face. Then he nodded. "So the rumors are true?" "They are." He folded his hands. "What do you want?" "I want a job." Nathan blinked once, then laughed, not mockingly, just genuinely surprised. "I spent years trying to recruit you. You rejected every offer. And today you walked into my office asking to work here. Ironic, I suppose." He became serious again. "What position?" "Whatever position allows me to create the most value." Nathan leaned back. "I expected a list of demands." "I don't need demands. I need results." He stared at me for several seconds before smiling again. "I'll make you Executive Strategy Director." Olivia nearly dropped her coffee. "Nathan, that's one of the highest positions in the company." "I know," he looked at me. "If anyone here deserves it, it's her." I nodded once. "I accept." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "That's it? No negotiation? You already offered more than I expected." He laughed again. "I almost miss competing against you." "You still can." "Oh, I'm planning to build my own company someday." His grin widened. "There she is. I was wondering when the real Sophia would return." "There is one condition." Nathan nodded. "I assumed there would be. When every contract between Blackwell Industries and Sinclair Group expires, don't renew them." He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he opened a file on his tablet. Several long-term contracts appeared. "Our last major agreement expires in 32 days. I know, if we don't renew, it'll hurt them. That's the point." Nathan looked at me for another moment. Then closed the file. "Done. No new contracts. No extensions. No special favors." Olivia quietly watched both of us. "You two really are terrifying." Nathan shrugged. "It's only business." I nodded. "Exactly." The meeting ended much sooner than I expected. As I stood to leave, Nathan called my name. "Sophia." I stopped. "You don't have to prove anything here. I hired you because you're the best, not because of sympathy. Not because of charity, simply because he believed that, for the first time in days, someone had judged me based on my ability, not on a rumor." I gave him a small nod. "I won't disappoint you." "I know." As soon as I stepped outside the building, my phone started vibrating, one call after another. They were from the companies where I owned shares. News spread quickly in our industry. Everyone already knew I had been removed from Sinclair Group. The first call came from Marcus Reed, founder of a logistics company. 5 years ago, when nobody believed in his business, I had quietly purchased 10% of it. Not because I wanted control, because I believed in him. "Miss Sinclair, I heard what happened. I'm sorry. I'm fine. If there's anything we can do, there is. I'm listening. When your supply agreement with Sinclair Group expires, I want you to review every option before renewing." Marcus understood immediately. "I'll have my team do that." The second call came from a pharmaceutical company. The third, a software company. The fourth, a renewable energy company. Years ago, most people thought I was wasting money buying minority shares in small businesses. Now, those investments gave me influence, not control. Influence, and in business, Influence was often worth more. None of the CEOs asked for an explanation. None of them demanded favors. Each simply promised the same thing. We'll make our decision based on what's best for the company. That was all I wanted. Fair decisions, without pressure, without manipulation. That evening, I finally returned to Daniel's apartment. The first truly quiet moment since leaving home. I changed into comfortable clothes, made myself a cup of coffee, then opened my laptop. For the next several hours, I reviewed financial reports, industry trends, investment opportunities, potential office locations. If I was going to rebuild, I would do it properly. Just before midnight, Nathan sent me a message. Welcome to Blackwell Industries. Try not to outshine me too quickly. I smiled. Then replied, no promises. Almost instantly, another message appeared. It wasn't from Nathan. It was from Olivia. Dinner tomorrow, no business talk, just friends. I looked at the message for a long moment. Friends. I wasn't sure when I had last heard that word. Finally, I typed a single reply. I'd like that. The next morning, news spread through the business world. Blackwell Industries had quietly announced several strategic changes. Nothing dramatic, nothing suspicious, just routine adjustments. Most people ignored the announcement. I didn't. I recognized Nathan's style. He never attacked loudly. He simply moved his pieces across the board. By the time everyone realized what had happened, the game was already different. Looking out the apartment window, I watched the sunrise over the city. 3 days ago, I had believed my life was over. Now, for the first time, it felt like it was beginning again. The Sinclair family had taken away my home. They had taken away my title. They had even taken away my surname. But they had overlooked one thing. They never took away the person who had earned all of it, and that would make all the difference. To be continued. The Disowned Heiress Part 4. The next morning, I officially became part of Blackwell Industries. When the elevator doors opened on the executive floor, every conversation stopped. Some employees recognized me immediately. Others only knew me from the recent headlines. The woman who had supposedly betrayed Sinclair Group, the disgraced heiress, the former successor. Rumors spread far faster than the truth. I had learned that lesson the hard way. Nathan was already waiting in the boardroom. He looked up from his watch. You're 1 minute early. I dislike being late. I know. He stood. Come on. I'll introduce you to everyone. The board meeting lasted nearly 4 hours. Every executive presented reports from their respective departments. Manufacturing, finance, research, international business. No one expected me to speak. After all, it was my first day. Nathan closed the final report before looking at me. Sophia, anything you'd like to add? More than 20 executives turned toward me. Some looked curious. Some looked doubtful. One even smiled as though expecting me to embarrass myself. I stood, walked toward the presentation screen, then opened the logistics report. Our transportation costs decreased by 7%. Several department heads nodded proudly. Excellent work. I clicked to the next slide. Unfortunately, our delivery time increased by 12%. The room fell silent. Customers don't measure efficiency by transportation costs. They measure it by how quickly products reach them. I highlighted another chart. This warehouse reduced expenses, but it also reduced inventory. If demand rises unexpectedly, we'll lose millions. For the next 30 minutes, I reviewed every department, not criticizing, improving. Every problem came with a solution. Every weakness came with a plan. When I finally returned to my seat, no one questioned why Nathan had hired me. One elderly director smiled. Now I understand. Nathan crossed his arms. I told you. Over the following 2 weeks, my schedule became even busier than before. Ironically, leaving Sinclair Group hadn't reduced my workload, it had increased it. The only difference. This time every achievement belonged to me, not to my family. One afternoon, Daniel visited my office. He placed a folder on my desk. Your investment portfolio. I opened it. Every company in which I owned shares had submitted quarterly reports. Most of them had one thing in common. Their contracts with Sinclair Group were approaching expiration. Daniel looked at me. They're asking for your opinion. I slowly closed the folder. I'll meet each board personally. You aren't going to tell them what to do? No, I'll tell them the truth. The following week, I attended meeting after meeting. Every company asked essentially the same question. Should we renew our agreement with Sinclair Group? I never answered immediately. Instead, I showed them public financial reports, management changes, delayed projects, increasing customer complaints, poor decision-making after my departure. I won't make the decision for you. I only recommend that every board carefully review the risks before signing another long-term agreement. That was all. The choice remained theirs. Some renewed, many didn't. Others shortened their contracts while waiting for stability to return. Within a month, nearly 40% of Sinclair Group's long-term partners had chosen different directions. Not because I forced them, because confidence had disappeared. Business followed trust. Trust had become Sinclair Group's biggest weakness. Meanwhile, Ryan called. I finished analyzing the files from your former assistant. What did you find? There are irregular transactions. Whose accounts? Victoria's. He paused. I also found several shell companies receiving money from Sinclair Group. I frowned. Could it simply be consulting fees? I thought so too, so I kept digging. And they don't exist. The room became quiet. Ryan continued. I think someone has been moving company money through fake businesses. I closed my laptop. Send everything to my lawyer. Already done. That evening, I met with attorney James Carter. He carefully reviewed every document. Every bank transfer, every email, every invoice. After nearly an hour, he removed his glasses. If these documents are authentic, they indicate possible corporate fraud. I nodded. I don't want rumors. I want facts. You have enough to request an official investigation. I won't announce anything publicly. Good, the authorities should handle this. That was exactly what I wanted. If Victoria had committed crimes, the law would decide her future, not me. A month later, news spread through the business world. The Financial Crimes Bureau had officially opened an investigation into several companies connected to Sinclair Group. No names were released, only the existence of the investigation. The stock market reacted immediately. Sinclair Group's shares fell. Investors became nervous. Several planned partnerships were postponed. Nathan watched the news from his office. You expected this? I expected uncertainty. He looked toward me. You haven't celebrated. There isn't anything to celebrate. If they're innocent, they deserve fairness. If they're guilty, the law will handle it. Nathan smiled slightly. You've changed. Maybe, or maybe, I finally understand where my energy should go. Another 2 weeks passed. Blackwell Industries announced its largest overseas expansion in company history. The strategy had been built over countless late nights. Every department worked together. Every risk had been calculated. When the project launched, it exceeded every prediction for the first time in years. Blackwell Industries overtook Sinclair Group in quarterly profits. The newspapers called it historic. Nathan simply looked at the report, then at me. You know, you've been here less than 3 months. I've noticed. I should probably thank the Sinclair family. I laughed. No, thank yourself. You were the one who hired me. That night, as I stood alone beside my apartment window, looking at the city lights, I realized something strange. The anger that had consumed me for weeks had become quieter. It hadn't disappeared, but every day I spent building something new, the past mattered a little less. For the first time since leaving the Sinclair mansion, I wasn't thinking about what I had lost. I was thinking about what I was creating, and somehow, that felt far more satisfying. 3 months. That was all it took for my life to become almost unrecognizable. 3 months ago, I had been the future heir of Sinclair Group. Now, I was one of the youngest executives at Blackwell Industries. Ironically, I was happier, not because my life had become easier, because every achievement finally belonged to me. One Monday morning, Nathan dropped a thick file onto my desk. Our biggest client. They're thinking about expanding into Asia. I want your proposal. I looked at the file. This project should belong to international operations. Nathan shrugged. They already submitted one, and I hated it. I couldn't help smiling. So I'm your second choice? No, you were always my first. You just weren't working here. For the next 5 days, I barely left my office. Every market, every regulation, every shipping route, every competitor, I studied them all when the presentation day arrived. The conference room was filled with executives from both companies. I walked to the front. No notes, no script. Only confidence. 90 minutes later, the client accepted our proposal without requesting a single revision. As they left, their chairman shook my hand. "Miss Sinclair," I smiled politely. "It's Sophia Blackwell Industries now." Nathan nearly laughed. After the meeting, he caught up with me. "You enjoyed saying that." "A little. Only a little, maybe more than a little." That afternoon, Ryan called again. "The investigation is progressing. What did they find?" "They're being very quiet. But several financial records have been requested from Sinclair Group." I nodded. "Good." He paused. "You don't seem as interested as before." I looked out of my office window. "I used to think about them every day. And now, I've been too busy." Ryan laughed. "I never thought work would become your therapy." Neither did I a few days later. Olivia dragged me to lunch, not invited, dragged. "You've been hiding in your office." "I've been working." "Exactly." She pointed her fork at me. "You're becoming Nathan." "I'll take that as an insult." It was. We both laughed. For the first time in months, the conversation had nothing to do with business. Nothing to do with Sinclair Group, nothing to do with my past, just two friends enjoying lunch. It felt normal. I had almost forgotten what normal felt like. That evening, Nathan walked into my office carrying 2 coffee cups. "I need your opinion." "On what?" He placed another file in front of me. "The board wants to acquire a smaller technology company." I reviewed the documents carefully. 10 minutes later, I closed the file. "Don't buy them." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "Reason?" "They're hiding debt." He blinked. "I couldn't find any." "You weren't looking in the right place." I pointed toward a small note buried deep inside the financial statements. "The debt belongs to a subsidiary. If you acquire the parent company, you inherit everything." Nathan stared at the report for a long moment, then smiled. "I really hate how often you save me money. I'll consider that another compliment." "It isn't." It sounded like one. 1 week later, the Financial Crimes Bureau released another public statement. The investigation into several financial transactions connected to Sinclair Group had officially expanded. No conclusions had been reached. No charges had been filed, but investors noticed. Within hours, Sinclair Group's stock price dropped again. Business channels discussed the situation all day. Some analysts blamed market uncertainty. Others blamed recent management decisions. I watched the news for less than a minute before turning the television off. Nathan looked at me. "Not interested?" "I've spent enough time looking backward. What matters now? I can't control what I build tomorrow." "I can." Nathan smiled. "That's the answer I was hoping for." Several days later, my lawyer visited my office. "The investigators thanked us." "For what?" "The documents. They've asked for additional records. If they need anything else, we'll cooperate." He nodded. "That's all." As he stood to leave, he stopped. "Miss Sinclair." "Yes, whatever happens from here, the law will decide it." I smiled. "I know, and that's exactly how it should be." Life slowly settled into a routine. Morning meetings, afternoon negotiations, evening reports, late-night strategy sessions with Nathan, occasional dinners with Olivia. For the first time in years, I wasn't living according to someone else's expectations. I was living according to my own. One rainy evening, I returned to my apartment carrying another stack of reports. As I unlocked the door, I noticed an old cardboard box sitting in the corner. It contained the few belongings I had taken from the Sinclair mansion. Curious, I opened it. Inside were childhood photographs, my first business notebook, a fountain pen my grandfather had given me when I was 14. For a long time, I simply stared at them. I expected to feel anger or sadness. Instead, I felt gratitude, not for what had happened, but for the lessons I had learned. Those memories were part of me. They had shaped me, but they no longer defined me. I carefully closed the box, placed it back on the shelf, and walked away. Some chapters of life deserve to be remembered, not relived. The following morning, as the sun rose over the city, I stood in front of the glass windows of my office, watching thousands of people begin another day. Nathan walked in beside me. "What are you thinking about?" I smiled faintly. "For the first time in a long time, I'm not thinking about proving anyone wrong. I'm thinking about proving myself right." He nodded. "I think that's when people become truly successful." I looked toward the skyline. The future no longer frightened me for the first time. It excited me, and deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning, to be continued. The Disowned Heiress Part 5. A year. It had been exactly 1 year since I walked out of the Sinclair mansion carrying nothing more than a suitcase. At the time, I thought my life had ended. Looking back now, it was the first day I had truly started living for myself. Blackwell Industries had changed just as much as I had. Projects that existed only as ideas 12 months ago had become successful businesses. Our overseas expansion exceeded every expectation. Several magazines listed Blackwell Industries as the fastest growing company in the country. Nathan hated those articles. They always used terrible photos of me. Olivia burst into laughter. You're worried about the photos? They make my hair look terrible. I looked at both of them. You two really are siblings. Nathan shrugged. We have priorities. For the first time in years, work wasn't only work, it was enjoyable. One Monday morning, the executive conference room was packed. Department heads, regional directors, investors, even members of the board. Nathan stood at the front. We've spent 6 months preparing for this acquisition. He looked toward me. Sophia, would you like to explain the final strategy? I nodded. For the next hour, every question was answered. Every concern had a solution. When the presentation ended, the chairman of the board smiled. I've attended board meetings for over 30 years. This is one of the best presentations I've ever seen. Nathan looked toward me. I told you she'd impress everyone. After the meeting, we walked back toward our offices. Nathan suddenly asked, do you ever miss it? What? Sinclair Group? I thought carefully before answering. I miss the memories, the people I thought were family, the dreams I had as a child. But I don't miss the company. Nathan nodded. I figured. That afternoon, Ryan called. I have the official notice. The investigation, it's finished. I quietly thanked him before ending the call. For several minutes, I simply sat there, not speaking, not moving. Nathan eventually knocked on my office door. You okay? I think so. You don't sound convinced. I smiled faintly. I spent months waiting for this day, and now that it's here, I don't know what I'm supposed to feel. Later that week, my lawyer handed me the official report. Every accusation against me had been dismissed. The evidence showed that I had never leaked confidential company information. I had never misused company funds. I had never committed the acts I had been accused of. Several newspapers printed corrections. Business magazines updated their earlier reports. Industry leaders quietly reached out to congratulate me. One by one, the lies disappeared. Not because I argued with them, because the truth finally caught up. As I left my lawyer's office, reporters waited outside. Microphones immediately appeared in front of me. Miss Sinclair, do you have a statement? How do you feel now that your name has been cleared? Will you return to Sinclair Group? I looked at the crowd. A year ago, I would have prepared a speech. Today, I simply smiled. I appreciate everyone who waited for the truth. As for the future, my focus isn't on returning anywhere. It's on moving forward. With that, I walked away. That single interview became the most widely shared business clip of the week. Back at Blackwell Industries, Olivia walked into my office carrying a cake. What is this? A celebration. For what? You got your reputation back. I laughed. You bought a cake for that? I buy cake for everything. Nathan entered behind her. She's not exaggerating. Olivia handed me a fork. No speeches, just eat. For the next hour, no one mentioned investigations or newspapers or the past. We simply talked about movies, travel, ridiculous office stories. I realized something during that conversation. Some families are given to you, others you find along the way. Weeks passed. Life settled into its usual rhythm. Meetings, reports, flights, negotiations. One evening, I stayed late to finish reviewing a proposal. The office had become almost completely empty. Nathan knocked once before walking inside. I thought you'd still be here. I had work. He placed 2 cups of coffee on my desk. We need to talk. I looked up. He wasn't joking this time. The board wants to offer you a partnership. For a moment, I thought I had misheard him. A partnership? They unanimously approved it. You'd become one of the youngest partners in the company's history. I stared at the documents. A year ago, this would have been impossible to imagine. Nathan quietly added, "You've earned it. Take your time. There isn't any pressure." After he left, I remained alone in the office. The city lights reflected against the glass windows. The proposal remained open on my desk. It was everything I had worked for: respect, influence, security, yet something didn't feel complete. That night, I couldn't sleep. Instead, I drove through the city without any destination. Eventually, I found myself standing outside the small library where I used to study during university. Nothing had changed. The same old benches, the same trees, the same quiet streets. I smiled. Back then, I dreamed about becoming the CEO of Sinclair Group. Not because I loved the company, because I believed it was my responsibility. Somewhere along the way, that dream had quietly disappeared, and another had taken its place. Not inheriting an empire, building one. The following morning, I opened the notebook I had carried since I was 13. Inside were years of ideas, business plans, market research, company names I had once imagined. Most of them were childish, some were impossible, but one page caught my attention. At the top, written in neat handwriting, were the words, "Build something that people trust." No company name, no logo, just that sentence. I smiled. Maybe that had always been my real dream. I had simply been too busy following someone else's path to notice it. I closed the notebook, picked up Nathan's proposal, and walked toward his office. I finally knew what my answer would be. Nathan looked up the moment I entered his office. He didn't say anything. Instead, he glanced at the folder in my hands. "I take it you've made your decision." "I have." He leaned back in his chair. "I'm listening." I placed the partnership agreement on his desk. Then, I gently pushed it back toward him. "I'm declining." For the first time since I'd known him, Nathan looked genuinely surprised. "You do realize what you're turning down?" "I do. You'd have everything most people dream of." "I know." He remained silent. "So, why?" I walked toward the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the city. For years, I believed success meant inheriting Sinclair Group. When that dream disappeared, I thought I had lost my future. I smiled faintly. Then Blackwell Industries gave me another one. I turned to face him. But somewhere along the way, I realized I've been building other people's dreams my entire life. Nathan didn't interrupt. "I don't want to inherit another empire. I want to build my own." For several seconds, the office was completely silent. Then, Nathan laughed, not because he found my answer amusing, because he had expected it all along. "I knew it. I was just hoping I was wrong." I smiled. "You'll manage without me?" He sighed dramatically. "I suppose I'll have to." Then he stood and extended his hand. "Congratulations." "On what?" "On finally choosing yourself." I shook his hand. "Thank you." "No," he smiled. "Thank you. You helped build this company into what it is today. I won't forget that." Later that afternoon, Olivia burst into my office without knocking. "You said no." Nathan must have told her already. "I did." She folded her arms. "I should be angry. But I know exactly why you did it." She walked over and hugged me. "I'm going to miss seeing you every day. You'll still see me, probably." She narrowed her eyes. "Unless you become too important." "I'll try not to." She laughed. "You'd better." Before leaving that evening, Nathan called the entire executive team into the conference room. Everyone looked confused. He stood at the front. "I have an announcement." The room became quiet. "Sophia will be leaving Blackwell Industries at the end of the month." Several people looked shocked. One director immediately asked, "Did another company recruit her?" Nathan smiled. "No, she's starting her own." The silence lasted only a moment. Then, the room erupted into applause, not because they were happy I was leaving, because they understood. Every executive stood to shake my hand. Some wished me luck. Others offered their support. One elderly director smiled. "I watched you arrive here carrying the weight of the world. Today, you look lighter." "I am." The next month passed quickly. I finished every project I had started. Prepared detailed reports for my successor. Met every client personally. I wanted to leave Blackwell Industries the same way I had worked there, with professionalism. On my final day, Nathan handed me a small box. "What's this?" "A farewell gift." Inside was the pen I had admired during my first board meeting. "You noticed?" "I notice more than people think." I smiled. "I'll use it." "I expect you to." Finding an office turned out to be easier than I expected. Finding the right people was much harder. I wasn't looking for the smartest employees or the most experienced. I wanted honest people. People willing to learn. People who believed success was earned, not inherited, one by one. The team slowly came together. The office was still small, only a handful of desks. A single meeting room, an empty reception area, but every morning, it felt a little more alive. On the day the company was officially registered, I unlocked the front door before anyone else arrived. The morning sunlight poured through the windows. I walked slowly through the office, touching each desk as I passed, not because they were expensive. They weren't, not because the office was impressive. It wasn't, but because every chair, every computer, every folder had been chosen by me. There was no famous family name above the entrance. No inherited fortune waiting inside, only a dream, and a team willing to chase it with me. I stood in the reception area and looked at the blank wall. Soon, my company's name would be there, not because someone had handed it to me, because I had earned it. I smiled. People often ask when a person's life truly begins. Some say it's the day they're born, others say it's the day they achieve success. I disagree. I think it begins the day they stop living for someone else's expectations. That day, for me, was today. I unlocked the office door, switched on the lights, and stepped inside, ready to write the next chapter of my life, the end.